Diamond P Sports presents the fastest sport on wheels, championship drag racing.
How dangerous? Watch this. 41-year-old Columbus businessman, local driver, near lane, Jeg Coughlin. He's over 245 miles an hour. Shoot, deploys, rips off. He's down to about 150 miles an hour, headed for the end of the course. He's headed for the barrier. Begins to bounce and takes the barrier in a savage, terrible crash. The safety crews are there within seconds of when this $35,000 fuel machine is destroyed. Coughlin extricated from the machine and able to stand up by himself and walk away. From the driver's vantage, Colonel Olson, what's happening right here?
Ken, because of the flexibility of this machine, under heavy braking, it starts bouncing violently. Jeg is fighting for control to get that car into the net straight, but it does flip over. The net catches it, does a violent snap roll backwards, and the car lands upside down.
A local boy, Jeg Coughlin, wrapped in the clutches of that safety net, but far better than being wrapped up in that Armco barrier just 60 feet away. He sustained a broken hand, some broken ribs.
If your parachute fails to open at over 200 miles an hour, all the brakes in the world won't keep you out of Farmer Brown's front yard over here. The alternative is hit the bullseye on this aircraft carrier-style catch net, as Brian Raymer did it just perfectly. He didn't brake so hard that the car was bouncing. It came in flat on all fours right under the net, and he is still in competition. That's the way it's done down here at the far end. Even though you've crossed the finish line, the battle is not yet over. Should you have a parachute failure, as Kerry Swigert did in Top Fuel qualifying, your chances of stopping the car before you reach this, the catch net, are very slim. Swigert demonstrated the ideal way to attack this net. Hit it head-on, as straight as possible, and you'll do minimal damage to the car, and the driver will almost always walk away. A couple of $1,000s worth of damage to Swigert's automobile, but he's just fine.
While all this action has been taking place on the quarter-mile racetrack, Steve Evans has been examining the racetrack itself.
I'm down here at the very far end of National Trail Raceway. When this track was built back in the early 60s, the shutdown area was more than adequate for the cars of the period. But now, with the top classes going almost 100 miles an hour faster than they used to, you'll find a unique piece of safety equipment down here. It's called the net. In fact, in this case, it is a double net. The idea is to catch a dragster, a funny car, whatever, if the parachute and the brake should fail. How well does the net work? Well, we all found out yesterday when California funny car driver Mike Dunn gave it the supreme test.
Mike Dunn and the ride of his life. It's almost unbelievable, the intensity of the fire. The parachutes vaporized. The right rear tire explodes, shattering the fiberglass body. From another angle, you can see that right rear slick explode, breaking the body in half. The car thunders into the net. First, the initial contact, then thrown sideways into the second net. The car, ensnared in the nylon web of the catch nets, comes to a sudden stop. And with the smoke rising from the burning tires, engine, and grass, Mike Dunn releases his safety harness, jumps from the roll cage, and hard as it is to believe, Mike Dunn was able to run to safety. Back in the first round, after he defeated Kenny Bernstein, John Force had his parachute look like a streamer. And once again, trying to stop the car, John Force takes dead aim on those catch nets at the end of the racetrack. force guiding his car towards the center of the track and the center of the net, much slower than we saw Mike Dunn go into it. The net stretches, then responds and stops John Force.
Some kind of drag racing legend. Grahulis in the near lane, they lead right together. Grahulis with a bit of an edge, and something breaks in Karamazini's car. Doug Grahulis wins the race. The wing has broken off of Doug Grahulis' car. The parachute is wrapped around the wing, and this is a very short racetrack. Doug Grahulis headed for the catch net, and he just drills the bullseye on the net. Actually, it's a pair of nets, aircraft carrier style, that have gathered up Doug Grahulis' 150-mile-an-hour race car.
Well, Steve, these cars are made to go, not to stop. They have only two-wheel brakes on the back, and of course that parachute to slow them down. As we saw, Doug did not have his parachute because of this broken wing. And here at Columbus, that was big, big trouble right from the start. As you can see, the race car has crossed the line somewhere in the range of 250 miles an hour, and down comes the wing and immediately snags the parachute, and then he's in big trouble.
Well, at 250 miles an hour, there's about 200 pounds of downforce on that wing, and apparently some component in the wing support structure broke, and as you can see, the parachute wrapped right around it. Now, Doug Grahulis did exactly what you're supposed to do. Keep the car from bouncing on the tires and aim right at that target. It takes a lot of courage to do it, and he did it brilliantly.
He certainly did. As you can see, there's a steel guardrail beyond that. The catch fence did its job to perfection, but we hope that Doug got out of that crash all right.
Well, Doug Grahulis right now has been put into the ambulance here at National Trail and is getting medical attention from NHRA Safety Safari paramedics.
As near as we can see, the integrity of the race car, the roll cage, and the rest of the safety equipment worked. That Doug was well packaged in the race car. As we see it, another impact, and the catch fence there pulls the car to an immediate halt. But of course, there were massive G-forces at work.
In this part of the country, this could be a freshly plowed field awaiting a second planting of soybeans, but it's not. It's the sand trap at the end of a rather short National Trail Raceway, and its purpose is to catch errant race cars. It's really more gravel than sand, varying in depth from about 6 inches to 3 feet. Now, just past the sand trap is a breakaway fence and then Refugee Road, which the local constabulary closed down anytime the hot stuff is running. And across the street is Herb White. Now, he's never had a visiting race car, but he must have had a premonition, because this year he moved his garden.
A wild ride by Gary Phillips. In a qualifying attempt in Funny Car Eliminator, Gary Phillips met the challenge of the sand trap and ended up in Herb White's front yard. Once again, the safety regulations of the National Hot Rod Association proved their worth as Gary Phillips emerged unhurt. As we watch again, Phillips approached the finish line, the engine exploding into a ball of flame, the fire continuing to burn, Phillips trying to maintain control of the vehicle as it crossed over into the other lane of the racetrack. The parachute deployed, but the car began to come around, the left rear tire exploding from the heat, the body melting into a mass of fiberglass. Incredibly, Phillips continued to steer the car, and as these graphic pictures captured by our Diamond B Sports cameraman Jeff Kelty proved, he entered the sand trap head-on and came to a slowing stop. Both cars approaching the starting line very gingerly. When they're set, it's a green light start, and Ray Stutz pulls to a big lead. But here comes Jody Smart. It's close at the finish, and it is Ray Stutz by half a car length. The crew very happy with the performance, but look, no parachute for Jody Smart. He's approaching that sand trap, trying to get the car slowed down, and the sand trap does its job. It goes just across the road and comes to a halt once again in Herb White's front yard. Looking in replay, you see Ray Stutz. He has got about a half a car length lead the last half of the racetrack. He holds on to that to the finish. But while the race was over, that's when the action really began for Jody Smart. He attempted to deploy the second parachute, but it failed to come out in time. Smart slid across the gravel, the car slowing drastically. Smart drove it into the fence, across the road, and into the field.
We see in the top professional categories, the revs come up as they take a look at the lights. Good start. Both drivers off the mark well, but it is Denny Townsend who had problems, had to get off the throttle, and Brady Bryant. Hurst
Texas goes on to win it at 6:42. No shoot again on Grady Bryant.
And he's not going to get it stopped. See, he heads straight for the sand trap and all the way over. Bryant with a crash down in the sand trap. The front end of the chassis bent all around there. That's Ronnie Davis from the NHRA Safety Safari, one of the top paramedics in his field. And obviously he is talking to Bryant, so Bryant apparently is okay and able to talk to his rescuers.
Well, Grady Bryant was carrying far more speed than Vern Moats, which is why he got into the gravel pit. It's really more gravel than sand. Now watch the front end. There he's got a lot of speed, and suddenly that speed comes to nothing, and he is picked up by the air traffic controllers at the Columbus Airport.
Well, Bryant went through the traps at 217 miles an hour. That kind of speed absolutely mandates that you have the chute behind you to get the thing slowed down. Well, with no chute, all he could do was hope that the engine would carry it down a little bit and pump the brakes. That took him into the trap at the end. When the nose went in, look at that, a perfect pirouette as it flipped end over end and almost got it right back on the wheels. But when the front end hit in, it just bent the front of the car around. But Ronnie Davis was right there, and apparently Grady Bryant is okay.